We're working with the Seattle Municipal Archives to tell a story about our city's past and how it's connected to the present and the future. We're on the shores of Lake Washington, just north of Husky Stadium. It's a beautiful spot, but did you know one of Seattle's most active city dumps used to be here? It was only shut down about 50 years ago. Seattle's approach to garbage, recycling, and the environment has changed a lot over the years. So let's dive in, take a look back in time, and learn more. The Great Northern Railroad arrived in Seattle in 1893, in the middle of a population explosion. The city grew from 3,500 people in 1880 to 42,000 by 1890, then 81,000 by the year 1900.
And the infrastructure was just not keeping up with the growth of the city. There was no city planning really to speak of, and people were spreading out all over, and city services were not keeping up with that.
Garbage and waste were major problems. In the 1890s, complaints poured into City Hall about trash and cesspools around Seattle schools. Seattle built a sewer system in 1894, but it wasn't a complete answer, as untreated wastewater went right into Elliott Bay.
I think the worldview then was that there was vast expenses of water and that nothing could be harmed by dumping it all in there.
By 1910, Seattle was using horse-drawn wagons to bring 300 tons of trash a day to 5 incinerator plants. A smoky, smelly mess that drew new complaints from residents and overworked wagon drivers.
It became overwhelming. It became a health problem for people.
After that, Seattle gave up on incinerators and used landfills for its trash. Yet problems persisted. In the early 1920s, Mayor Edwin J. Brown reported on explosions in the city's sewer system due to residents dumping gas and oil. But Seattle was changing.
So there was this citywide initiative called Cleanup Week, and it took place for the first 2 weeks in May in 1922. I thought that was pretty interesting because it doesn't only speak to the fact that the departments were trying to create this infrastructure, but there was also a certain element of public outreach and education to try to get people to understand that they should dispose of their garbage responsibly.
Garbage became an important business in the 1930s, as Seattle and the entire U.S. were reeling from the Great Depression. Hoovervilles popped up around the city, many near landfills. The shanty towns drew more complaints, but some saw a silver lining, as people lobbied the city for the right to salvage and sell paper and rags from the city's dumps.
People were losing their jobs, people were losing their homes, they didn't have any money to feed themselves or their families, so they were looking for any opportunity they had to earn an income, however small.
Many of Seattle's garbage routes went uncollected in the 1940s, with workers serving in World War II. But at the end of the war, Seattle grew again, and found in the 50s and 60s its landfills were running out of room.
As the population increased and more people moved to the city, the amount of trash increased, and just where to put it was a continuing problem.
Remember that dump north of Husky Stadium we showed you earlier? It closed in 1964. The city started using transfer stations to ship out its trash and urged its residents to keep Seattle clean for the 1962 World's Fair and beyond.
Well, the city of Seattle itself was looking at pollution control, and they were starting to recognize that we could be a more progressive city in that way.
You want progress? How about a prototype electric service vehicle, the Electruck, built and introduced in 1968 by Seattle City Light, or a parking meter retrofitted to charge an electric-powered AMC Gremlin? Seattle was surging ahead of the environmental movement sweeping across the country, designing a solar-powered house and then another electric vehicle in 1976, the RT1.
And the RT1 was a 4-passenger electric vehicle that was meant only to be driven in a restricted area, so there would be no other internal combustion engines in the area, in theory.
An electric vehicle-only area? That might sound a little out there, but it was the kind of innovation that led to a greener Seattle. The city started a recycling program in Fremont in 1978, which led to a citywide curbside recycling program in 1988.
We've really come a long ways since then.
City Council member Lisa Herbold chair of the Utilities Committee, says Seattleites now recycle nearly 60% of what we throw away, nearing the goal of 70% by the year 2025.
You know, in Seattle, we've taken leadership on this issue. And when I say we've taken leadership, I don't just mean government, I mean individuals who live in our city.
And at a time when federal funding for environmental protection is in jeopardy, the city of Seattle is taking a lesson from its past to prepare for a cleaner and greener future.
Yeah, we don't want to backslide. We can't backslide. You know, for me personally, I've always felt that large change happens locally. You can see that the rates of recycling actually increased dramatically starting in 2003. It's a great way to do your part as an individual resident of the city in such a way that benefits the greater good, not just for the city, but for the health of our planet.
If you enjoy the beauty of this city, you've got decades worth of Seattleites to thank. Seattleites whose voices come alive in the municipal archives.
I think one of the cool things about the whole garbage and solid waste theme is that it over time shows how people's attitudes changed.
We're never stuck in a certain way of doing something.
Not only do you see how the city has evolved, but you see how the citizens have interacted with the city.
And I think it just illustrates how Seattle has always been a little bit ahead of that curve and how we have a vision for the future of what we hope to achieve.
If you'd like to learn more about the history of Seattle through the municipal archives, go check them out on the 3rd floor of City Hall downtown, or go to seattle.gov/cityarchives. We'll leave you with a look at one of the greatest moments in energy conservation history, a young Sir Mix-a-Lot performing Reduce Your Chills and Cut Your Bills in 1987.
Don't freeze in the dark or rant or rave. Here's some tips to help you save.
Yes, you can save money and energy.
Watch CityStream Thursday nights at 7 on the Seattle Channel, or get video on demand and podcasts anytime at seattlechannel.org.